Good morning, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We are excited to have Mark Hamblin from Insideworks joining us. And Mark's going to be presenting on manufacturing and distribution, Business Central add-ons. And before I pass it over to Mark to cover on this topic, I just want to remind you that we are recording this session and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the questions box and we'll get them addressed as Mark goes along in the presentation. All right, so now I'm going to pass it on over to Mark to kick off our presentation.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so what we'll do today, as Angie mentioned, is we're going to go through and talk a little bit about the add-ons available for Business Central. We'll try to take about 30 to 45 minutes to do this session. And this is, I'm going to go through a little PowerPoint here, a quick overview, and then we'll jump into some actual product demos today. So just real quick, if you don't know who Insideworks are, that's us. And we've been working with Nav and Business Central, for about 10 years now. And the Business Central Cloud stuff, we actually started working with it before it was called Business Central. So we've been working with that for a few years and have a pretty good background in it. We do have offices, we're actually based in Western Canada. We do have offices worldwide. And really what we do is we focus on delivering these solutions with Innovia. So if you have any questions about any of this at the end, or if you forget to ask them, contact your Innovia rep. They'll be able to help you out with any questions or quotes or anything like that that you might need. All right, so that's a little bit about us. This is a little bit about what we do. So this covers off, the bulk of the add-ons that we offer for Business Central and Nav. So we do support in a lot of these cases for most of these products, Nav 2013 all the way up to Business Central Cloud. So if you're running an older version of Nav, that's fine. But if you are looking to move to the more modern solution, the Business Central, specifically Business Central Cloud, all of these applications will work with it. So I'll give you a quick overview of each of these guys, just to pique your interest, and then we'll look at some upcoming stuff and go through the demos. So the first one here, Warehouse Insight, that's probably one of our more popular products. That's mobile warehouse management. So you have a handheld scanner, you can scan barcodes, you can ship, receive, pick, inventory count, all of those sorts of things using barcoding. Dynamic Ship here is often paired with Warehouse Insight. That is, that is integrated shipping. So it allows you to do rate shopping across multi-carriers. It allows you to print labels, send tracking emails, all sorts of fun stuff. You can do all your shipping from within Business Central or Nav. So you eliminate using custom software or carrier-specific software like WorldShip or Ship Manager, those types of things. You do it all from within your Business Central. Advanced inventory count is significantly more capable than standard inventory count functionality you get in Business Central. So if you have auditors or if you have a lot of serial numbers and lot numbers and you need better reconciliation tools, the advanced inventory count is definitely worth looking at. License plating is kind of an underlying technology. I'll skip that for now. Now that top row is kind of the material handling side, the warehouse management side. Next two here are more manufacturing oriented. So Shopfloor Insight is a manufacturing execution system. So it's there to capture machine time, labor time, quality, graphical scheduling, consumption output, all of those sorts of things. Anything you need to manage your shop floor from the shop floor or within Business Central, that's where you'd use Shopfloor Insight for. Then if you need to generate a schedule for your manufacturing facility that incorporates labor constraints, tooling constraints, price of electricity, whatever constraints you want to throw at the thing, it'll generate a schedule that you can actually execute on the shop floor. So it'll generate the schedule, that's MXAPS, and Shopfloor Insight, you can see it graphically, you can drag and drop, you can execute that schedule that you've generated from MXAPS. Counter sales is like a mini point of sale solution. So if you have you're a manufacturer and you have a parts counter where you sell over the counter, or you need something for a trade desk type of solution, counter sales is a good fit. So it'll do everything a point of sale system will do, but it's built into Business Central or Nav and allows you to take multiple payment methods, to take deposits, all of those sorts of things that you'd expect from standard point of sale solution. Product configurator allows you to build up configured products. So for example, I'm building a bike or something like that. I can choose different handlebars and wheels and seat and all those sorts of things, and it'll generate the bill of materials and routing required to manufacture that product. And you can also do assembly BOMs. So if this is just kitting, you want to build up a hydraulic kit or something like that, you can use that to build up those kits and then execute them with, the other tools that we have available. You can also use rules and calculations to do that. So if you have anything that you need to configure, that is actually a very good tool to look at. Enhanced Planning Worksheet is another sort of manufacturing-oriented piece. If you're using the current planning worksheet in Business Central or NAV, the Enhanced Planning Worksheet takes it, up quite a bit. So it gives you a much better dashboard for doing your planning, and it incorporates, additional business logic if you're in distribution. So if you're doing distribution purchasing planning, the standard MRP in Business Central doesn't quite work that well for it. This gives us tools to streamline that purchasing planning. And the upcoming release, which I'll talk about in a sec, also incorporates some demand forecasting, so sales forecasting, some bill of material management tools, and a number of other tools that are available for that as well. Barcode generator, you probably don't care about, but if you're on Business Central Cloud and you need to add, various barcodes to your reports and things like that, that's a free tool you can download, install. Innovia or your own developers can go in and add the barcodes onto your reports. Nav Extender and Doc Extender, those are free tools that allow you to drag and drop into Nav or Business Central. So Nav Extender obviously is the Nav piece. You go to navextender.com, you run the app, you download it, run it. There's no license required, no code modifications or anything like that. And you can now drag and drop into any page in your Windows client. Doc Extender is the same thing, but for Business Central Cloud. So you can drag and drop into any attachment page in Business Central, and it'll upload that file into Business Central for you. And the last one here, I'll just mention, it's not really an app, it's just a service that we have. And, we found that when we do these implementations, people tend to send us passwords and usernames in their email, and that's not good. If you need a better way to, send a password to somebody, use SafeSend. It generates a one-time link, and it's a much more secure way of sending, sort of sensitive information like that. It's just a free tool. You go to isafesend.com and use it for whatever you like. That's more of a public service thing than anything. Okay, so that's general overview of the various products we have available. A pretty in-depth overview on some of them. And now I'll talk pretty briefly about what's coming up. So some of these have been released, but these are the new things that we have coming in the next little while. So you guys are getting sort of the inside track on this. You can go impress your friends and family with all your insider knowledge of what's coming. But what we have, if you're looking for a warehouse management solution, right, barcode scanning, we have some new versions of Warehouse Insight coming out. They'll be named slightly differently. But the key thing on those ones is they're going to be no charge. They're going to be free systems that you can use depending on your environment. So I'll talk about that in a sec. We also have coming up with our Shopfloor Insight product. It has a graphical scheduler in it today. We're going to extend that so that you can actually use that graphical scheduler from within Business Central, not just from within the shop floor. And then that's going to continue to improve to allow you to do a lot more than just very simple graphical scheduling. We also have a cloud print tool. So the problem with Business Central and printing, like Business Central Cloud and even Business Central and Azure to some extent, is that it makes it difficult to print things, right? When I want to print a packing slip and a shipping label or whatever, non-interactively, I just want to hit the print button. I want 10 reports to spit out on various printers. You can't really do that in Business Central. So we have a cloud print tool called, it's the Print Node Connector that you can use to set up and automatically print reports and documents and everything else non-interactively. Okay. The Enhanced Planning Pack, I talked a little bit about that. And that should be released here in the next little while on AppSource, so for Business Central Cloud. It incorporates a whole bunch of stuff like the forecasting and the bill of material management and the Enhanced Planning Worksheet and those sorts of things. So I'll show you a little bit of that in the demo. Counter sales, there's a release for Business Central coming out, Business Central Cloud coming out in a little while. We have a few customers running it now on Business Central Cloud, but it will be available on AppSource shortly, so you can even try it out or do whatever you want with it. Doc Extender is coming out with a new release. That should be next week that will be published, and it'll allow you to do SharePoint storage as well. So currently today in Business Central, when you drop a document on, it uploads it into the Business Central database and stores it as an attachment, which is actually a pretty good solution because Microsoft manages all that. who cares how much space those documents take up, and it's pretty nice. But there are times when you may want to, store that in SharePoint because you have other applications getting at it, or, various reasons. So we do have that ability to now store all those documents in SharePoint as well. And the last one here, Power BI apps. So we have one published now for Dynamic Ship, but there's a number of Power BI apps coming out, and the terminology in Power BI for an app, it's really, a dashboard or a set of reports that you can use to do your data analysis. Okay, and I might show you one of those. Now that's sort of everything that's coming new. Real quick on the new Warehouse Insight options. Again, they'll be under a different name, but if you do need a WMS, and you don't have, significant requirements for barcode scanning, but you have products with barcodes on there and you want to be able to receive them or count them or pick them or whatever, but you don't need anything fancy, these first three might be a good option for you. These will all be no cost, and they'll allow you to do basically, receiving, shipping, inventory count, those types of things with a handheld device. And the handheld devices that'll be available, well, you can use anything, even a phone, but if you purchase the devices, they'll come preloaded, and it's basically scan a barcode and you're up and running.
Hey, Mark.
The Warehouse Insight is the full one. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, we do have a question. Real quick, are these tools all part of an Insideworks extension package, or are each of these individual extensions in VC?
Very good question. So they're all individual extensions. They quite often will work with each other, right? So, for example, the Warehouse Insight Dynamic Ship will work together, and Shopfloor Insight can output to license plating and various things. But they are all individual extensions. You buy them, whichever ones you need. You don't have to buy them all at once. And then if you're on Business Central Cloud, it makes it quite easy. I'll actually show you when we get into it. You go to App Source, you click a few buttons, it installs it, and you can try them out, and you can install whichever apps you like. Okay, so that's the WMS stuff. So this is again upcoming. We do have a webinar coming up on the 24th on this, but keep in touch with the Innovia people. They'll be able to help let you know when some of these things are being released. If you have any interest in the upcoming products, they'll be able to help keep you in touch and updated on what's happening there. All right, so last thing here, if you're interested in any of those products I did that quick overview on, there are a number of things. So first of all, your first contact would be Innovia. So talk to your Innovia rep, they'll be able to help you out. But if you want to check out our website, you can. We do have a bunch of recorded webinars on there for the various products. And upcoming webinars and recorded webinars, and there's a knowledge base if you want to read a little bit about the usage of the products, and then just the individual page links for the various products that are out there. All right, so that's basically it. At that, I'm going to jump in and actually do a little bit of a demo overview for some of the things we talked about. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but what I wanted to show you again is so that you can impress your friends and family. I'll show you some of the new stuff that's coming down the road. We will talk about the core stuff like Shopfloor Insight for manufacturing and Warehouse Insight for warehousing. But let's start with some of the things in Business Central. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the Enhanced Planning Worksheet. And as I mentioned, this is, if you're using the existing planning worksheet in Business Central or NAV, this takes it up a notch. So when I open this up, and if you're used to using the planning worksheet, you're going to go say, well, that looks exactly like the planning worksheet. And what's different? Well, there's a few things. So first of all, over here we have a sort of a better summary for supply, demand, those sorts of things. We can also drill down and look into the inventory in other companies within the system. So if you have different legal entities, maybe in different states or whatever, you can still drill down and find out what the other companies have in stock, or the other locations. And then down here, we can also see, like if I'm doing planning and it's telling me to buy a bunch in the blue location, I might not want to because I have a whole bunch in a different warehouse that I can just transfer or whatever. And then another cool option here, and this is more if you're a distribution center, where you can actually do planning by vendor. So there's another screen for vendor oriented planning. So when you go into the planning worksheet, this is all very item centric. Everything is about the item that you're on, a bunch of items. But we can also do that planning at a vendor level. So if I go in, this particular vendor here, we know exactly how much we've, approved, in other words, accepted this action message. We know exactly, the dollar amount that's been approved to purchase. We know what we need to buy in order to get prepaid freight, and it'll tell us the remaining quantity we need to purchase for prepaids and things like that. So it manages all those prepaids and lets you plan from a different screen at the vendor level versus the individual item level as well. Okay, so that little fact box stuff is kind of handy, especially this one, because it tells you pretty quickly what's going on. And then you can also see things a little more graphically. So if we go down here, we've got a bunch of tabs where you can come in and you can sort of graphically see the history of that, sales, purchases, all of those sorts of things, and you can drill down on any of these. But just as importantly, if this thing is coming in and saying, hey, you need to buy 22 of these, and I say, well, that's dumb, I don't want to do that, because when I look at all this other information, it makes no sense for me to do that. Or I look at this chart and it makes no sense. So instead of having to drill down, or maybe I need to figure out exactly why it's telling me to do that, again, I can come in here, look at sort of a tabular version of the history. I can also look at the supply and demand to figure out why is it actually telling me to buy it. Well, it's all this forecast stuff, and I don't care about that. So I can actually come in here into the planning, and I can actually change the planning parameters right here for either the item or the stock keeping unit or whatever it is. So again, if you're used to the standard planning worksheet, this saves you a ton of time because everything is right here at your fingertips. You don't need to go drilling down and finding all of that stuff elsewhere. The other nice thing, as I mentioned, is we do have that advanced planning capability for purchase planning. So specifically for distribution centers. If I'm buying from vendors, the standard MRP is slow and noisy. This is much faster. I mean, we can plan 150,000 stock keeping units in a minute or so versus probably an hour or 2 hours in the standard Business Central logic. So it gives us a whole bunch of additional abilities for doing that distribution type planning. Okay, so anyway, that's the enhanced planning worksheet. That's all I'll cover on there. Kind of what goes with that is the forecasting capability. So the forecasting capability, if you've used or looked at Business Central, if you go into an item list, it's got that little forecast chart there that shows you, oh, you're going to be short X number of items over the next few months. Well, that's pretty and it looks great, but it's not very actionable. It doesn't really help you that much. What this does is it takes that logic, so it uses the Cortana machine learning stuff, and it'll send all the history and everything else for all the different items, and it'll generate a forecast for you. So for example, if I come in here and I'm just going to do it for chairs, I'm going to say for chairs, I want to do a 4-month forecast, and I'm going to look at the last 6 months of sales in order to generate that forecast. And what it'll do, again, it goes out to Cortana, the machine learning stuff, sends all that detail in there, and then comes back with the forecast for those products. And these are all kind of boring forecasts because they're all the same numbers, but quite often you'll see, buy 5 this month and 10 this month and 22 that month and that sort of thing. So it'll go out and generate a monthly forecast based on, those criteria you put up here. So this is telling me, yeah, for this period, the April to May 2018, because our work date is back in 2018, by these quantities. And with this forecast, if I review this and I like it, I can say update demand forecast, and that'll update the forecast within Business Central so that now the planning worksheet can pick that up and purchase to that particular forecast, right? Or I can actually go in and I can update the safety stock and reorder points for these items based on that forecast instead. So if I don't want to use the demand forecast stuff in Business Central, I can just set the mins and maxes basically based on the forecast that's being generated here. Okay, so anyway, that's a little bit on the forecasting side, and it's a nice lightweight tool, but it does use a pretty high-end forecasting engine behind the scenes in the Cortana machine learning stuff to generate these forecasts for you. All right, so that's a little bit on the forecasting. What I will also mention is the doc extender. If you haven't seen that, now nav extender is easy, you just drag and drop. Doc extender is pretty much the same. If you're in Business Central, I can come in, we'll just do an item here or something like that. I can come into any item and which one will open? We'll just do this guy, it doesn't really matter. And really anything that has links or attachments, I can come in here on the attachments tab, and you can see it's got a little doc extender icon. And I can just go in and say, you know what, I want an assembly diagram dropped onto that. You just drag and drop. It already attached it. Ask me if I want to open it, which is an option you can set. If I say yes, there's my attachment on this particular item, and that's all there is to it. So you can drag multiple items, like multiple documents over at one time, all of that sort of thing. Uploads it into Business Central, and you now have that assembly diagram available. And you can also do things, standard Business Central, add it onto the sales order and things like that if you need it. Right. All right, so that's Doc Extender. Again, free tool you can just install and run with. Nav Extender is somewhat similar for the Windows client, but both free. Okay, so that's a little bit of the new stuff in there. I'm not going to get into the configurator too much at this point. There's I believe a video for it online if you want to see it, or contact Anovia and they'll be able to help set up a specific demo for you if you like. What I'll do now is just very quickly jump in and talk a bit about, oops, I actually clicked that, talk a little bit about the warehouse management side of things. So what you see here on the screen as soon as it wakes up, this is an actual device I have in my hand. So I've got this Honeywell CK65 in my hand, and you're just seeing a screen from that handheld device. And this is actually connected up to my Business Central Cloud sandbox environment here. And I'm able to use this to perform all my WMS functions, right? All my warehousing functions. So these are all the different apps that are available from within the system. And all of those applications are actually built right within Business Central. So the nice thing about this solution is if you want to extend it, if you want to change the way it behaves, any of those sorts of things, you can go in there and you have full access to everything from within Business Central. Okay, so I can add an application if I want to do a fixed asset inventory or fixed asset count application, or I've got some custom QC thing I need to do or whatever. You can build those applications in or have Anovia do it. Okay, so very capable solution, very configurable. I'm not going to get into too much detail about all the individual apps on here, but I may actually just jump in and show you a little bit about how these things work. So if I go in here to the receiving app, what it's going to do is it's going to load up all the purchase orders in the environment for me and allows me to choose a PO, a document to actually execute. So I'm not going to get into too much detail, but this is just a list of purchase orders. If I wanted to see other details there, like the vendor name or whatever I like, I can come in and see that. And by the way, when you see the screen update, if you see that little circle in the middle of the screen, that's my finger touching the screen. At any rate, you can make all those columns visible and everything from the device. But if I come in here and just choose one of these purchase orders, what it's going to do is it's going to open that PO up and show me everything I need to receive on that particular purchase order. And I can now start scanning item as it says down here in the bottom. The ideal situation is you have your vendor barcode everything for you, but if they don't, I can actually come in and at various points within the process, I can actually print my own barcode labels. And those labels come directly out of Business Central. And they can be full color, they can be whatever format you like. They're just a Business Central report. You don't need separate software for printing labels or anything like that. I hit print on here and I'll pop my labels, or I go into Business Central and print those labels. And there's other places you can do that as well. But assuming you've got everything barcoded, it's actually really simple because all I do everywhere in the system, I'm just going to walk you through receiving here, but everywhere in the system, all you have to do is scan a barcode. I don't have to tell the system what I'm doing. I don't have to select an edit box, anything else. I just scan a barcode, the thing knows what I'm trying to do and reacts accordingly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a palette that I'm receiving here and I'm going to scan, this LS120. I don't know that's what I'm scanning. I just grabbed a box and I'm going to scan a barcode and the system's going to do its thing. So when I scan that barcode, it can optionally show you a picture of that item. And that's handy if you're doing your own barcoding, right? So there it showed me a pair of speakers that I just scanned, and if I'm holding a bag of apples or something in my hand, I know I've screwed up on the barcode. So anyway, if you have visually distinct items, that's handy. You can turn it on or off. Now it's prompting me for a bunch of information. I can enter a quantity here, and we can default a quantity into any variation you want. Set it to 0, default it into a lot quantity, or whatever you like. We can also come in and if I tap on unit of measure, I can change the unit of measure as well. A little calculator if I need to do a manual conversion, like I've got 13 per case and I got 17 cases or whatever, I can multiply that out if you like. And then these fields down here, this certificate number and the number of labels thing, those are custom fields I added. I actually went in and within Business Central, I just went into this quantity extension thing and I said, hey, every time we receive this type of item, I want to prompt the employee for these two pieces of information. And now they can come in and enter that detail, like certificate number, number of labels, that kind of stuff. There still has to be some logic in Business Central that Innovia can put in there for you that does something with this detail, but this illustrates how easy it is to actually extend the system to capture that information. Okay, but let's say on this one, you know, and I've got a physical keypad on this device, so I'm just using that. I can enter a quantity of 5. If you're using a device like a phone style device with a scanner in it, or even just a phone, because we can use the camera to scan. In the warehouse, I'd never use a phone, but if you're an outside sales guy or something like that, you could. But at any rate, if you don't have a physical keyboard, it would just pop up the standard Android keyboard and away you go. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. The other thing I should mention, we support Android and Windows. So if you're coming from an environment where you have a bunch of Windows devices already, you don't have to toss them in the garbage and buy Android. You can continue to use those Windows devices. And we support tablets, so Windows tablets or Android tablets or whatever you like. No iOS at this point. Okay, at any rate, all I do is I enter the quantity I've received as 5 and it drops it in and we're done. That's all real time with Business Central. If I go into Business Central and look at this receipt, that quantity is being set. It's pretty quick and easy, and you just scan a barcode, option enter quantity, and you're done. And that's all there is to the system. Now, another thing that's important, what a lot of people struggle with are inventory counts. I'm going to spend 2 minutes on inventory counts, and then we'll jump in and look at some manufacturing stuff. So the inventory counts, we have 2. We have the basic count, which is just the physical inventory journal in NAV or Business Central. And by the way, this solution here does support NAV 2013 all the way up to Business Central Cloud, like I'm using now. And it's the same, works exactly the same in both. So basic count uses the physical inventory journal, so it's basic, right? The physical inventory journal has lots of limitations, but if that's all you need and it works fine for you, you can scan to that. If you need something more advanced, we have the advanced inventory count. And what that allows us to do is count really 3 different ways. I can do an ad hoc count where I can just run out into the warehouse, scan a bunch of stuff, look at the differences and post it all from the handheld device. I never actually have to go into Business Central to do anything, right? So something goes wrong, I do a quick cycle count on that item, 5 minutes later, my inventory is accurate again. The other 2 ways, we have a directed count and a non-directed count. So directed means the system is going to tell me what to count, right? So we're going to go out and say, give me all my A items to count today, or give me 30 random items I haven't counted yet this year, or whatever it happens to be. And it's going to give us a list of items to go out and count, and we'll scan them in, and away we go. The last mode is the non-directed, and that is where the system doesn't tell us what to count. We're just going to scan everything we find in the warehouse. And that's great for full physical counts, right? Or if you're doing cycle counts by aisle or bin or whatever, because we don't care what Business Central thinks is out there. We're actually going to go out and tell it exactly what's physically there, and then it's going to tell us if there's any discrepancies. So that's what I've done. I've set up some count sheets ahead of time in Business Central. So the count sheet is kind of like a batch, but just a place where I can store my inventory counts. And I just named them Team 1 to Team 3. They can be whatever you like. And somebody tosses me a scanner and says, hey, you're Team 1 today. Go count that side of the warehouse. Great. So I open up the count sheet for Team 1. And when I do that, it starts out blank. And the reason it's blank is because the system isn't telling me what to find. I'm just going to go out there and physically scan everything that's there. And so the way it works, because I have bins enabled, you don't need bins enabled in this system. You don't need advanced warehousing turned on or anything like that for anything in Warehouse Insight. Doesn't matter what your NAV or Business Central configuration is, we can work with it. So in this case, I do have bins enabled. So what do? I walk up, I scan the bin, and then let's actually do a lot tracked item. And then I scan the item that I'm counting. Again, it obviously shows you that picture. You can close the screen ahead of time. Because the barcode I scanned was the lot number, it knows the lot number of the item, everything brings it in. And then all I have to do is enter the quantity that I counted, and that's it. And that's all you do. You walk through the facility, you scan everything you find, bin, item, quantity, and then within Business Central, it's going to tell you, or NAV, it's going to tell you where the discrepancies are. You can generate auditable recount sheets. You can do a whole bunch of stuff at that point. But from a physical accounting perspective, it's as simple as that. Beep, beep, and we're done. All right, so that's a quick overview of the warehouse management. And again, that stuff is going to be available free. So the 2 things I showed you, well, I lied a little bit there, sorry. The receiving and the basic inventory count and shipping or picking, that's all going to be available at no cost. So if you're interested in that, again, we'll have a webinar on the 24th, or you can keep in touch with Innovia, and they can help you out with more details once we've released them. Okay, so anyway, that's the warehouse management side of things. Let's talk very briefly about Shopfloor Insight. So Shopfloor Insight, what I did here was I opened it up to a page that has the schedule for the shop showing. So this is running in the Shopfloor Insight interface. So this is the interface that would run actually out on the shop floor in a browser, and it's really used for people to capture their time, capture machine time, do consumption output right out there in the shop floor, right, and a few other things. But what I did was just I've already scanned in as somebody named Emily here, and we're going to come in and we're going to look at the work that's outstanding within the facility. So this, what we see here is, we call this a graphical dispatch list. And so if I'm working at, let's say, Machine Center 120 here, I can come in, I can tap on this. It's nice if you have a touch screen, but I can use the mouse and the keyboard. I can tap on this, it highlights all the other operations in this production order in green, so I can see what's going on. And from here, I can just clock on to start, the time, or the clock ticking, I guess, on this particular operation. So we can actually capture the exact labor time or machine time for whatever activity we want to perform. And there's a few other things we can do there. And that's it. So I can use this as a tool for selecting what I want to work on and clocking on to that activity. But the other nice thing about this is we can change colors. You can see when I tap on, I turn green, but to highlight all the other operations. But I can do things like, if this is starting late, I can turn it red, or maybe you have a priority field, a custom priority field on your production order. I could turn it orange, maybe if it's a priority order, or if whatever. If I've started it, maybe it shows up in green, or whatever you want to do. So using those colors, you get to make a little bit of a dashboard. So just looking at the screen, I can look at, based on how we've displayed it, what are the things that need my attention? And on top of that, we can also go in and do things like show the bill of materials and actually do consumption from the screen, show any work instructions that are associated with that particular operation or production order. Technically, not many people do this unless you're in printing or something like that, but we can show the picture of that item. But here's where we can also show those links. So using Nav Extender or Doc Extender, if I've dragged and dropped stuff into Business Central, guess what? They're now available out on the shop floor for people to click on and use. And that could be a PDF or a video or Excel sheet or whatever you want to do to provide that information out to the shop floor. And then we also have the ability to do quality inspections. And the quality inspections is kind of handy because you can build up basically an entry form of information you need to capture at a specific operation for a specific item or whatever criteria you want to use. And then I can enter that data from within the shop floor interface and record passes or failures based on tolerances or any other criteria you want to specify in those quality inspections. So when we set it up like this, really what you've got is a very nice tool for displaying everything I need out on the shop floor to do my work, right? Now, Shopfloor Insight, if all you need is something for, capturing how much time you spend on operations, you don't need all this kind of stuff. I was going to say junk, but it's good stuff. So all these goodies, you don't need to. You can use a barcode scanner and you go beep, beep, and you've clocked somebody into an operation, and then an hour later they come and they beep, beep again, and you've tracked all their time against that activity. So it makes it very easy to actually capture time as well. If you want more of a sort of interactive view on the screen like this, we have that available as well. And then the last thing I'll mention on this is the ability for, say a supervisor to come in and manipulate the schedule. So if I come in and it's Friday afternoon here, and I say, you know what, we're not going to do this work today because somebody's going home early or whatever, I actually am going to reschedule this activity until next week. So what I do is I take that, if I have the right permissions, and I'm actually even going to drop it on a different machine. I'm going to drop it there, and as soon as I do that, it reschedules all the other operations out in time as well. So we have that ability to do the drag and drop scheduling from within this. Now, the reason I started with this, or one of the reasons I started with this, is this tool, as I mentioned, this is running in the Shopfloor Insight interface out in the shop floor, where a machine operator or welder or whatever is, or assembly line supervisor or whatever is going to be using this to manage what's going on. So that's out on the shop floor. But in the next release, this tool, and I'd say it's fairly updated compared to what you're seeing now, is also going to be available right within Business Central. So you just go into Business Central in the production order, you can launch this and you can do all of this directly from within Business Central as well as within just a normal web page that typically runs out on the shop floor. Okay, so that's a little bit very briefly on Shopfloor Insight. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to cover off today for a quick overview. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact Innovia or us, and we'll do our best to answer those questions for you. If you want a little more detail before you maybe start working on getting a hold of somebody, there are those videos that I mentioned on the website, on the dmsiworks.com website. You can go in and review some of these products in a little more detail. And if that's not enough detail for you, let Innovia know, and we can set up a specific demo for you if required. Okay. And I lied. There are a few more things that I didn't go into, but I won't bother, like the Power BI reporting and things like that. All right. Any other questions that anybody has at this point?
Thank you, Mark. No questions have come through.
Excellent. That's either good or bad, but I'll take it as a good sign. Everybody got everything they needed, and they're heavily impressed or highly impressed, and they're going to run out and share everything with everyone.
All right. Well, like Mark said, if anybody does have any further questions, please go ahead and contact us, and we'd be more than happy to help address those questions with you, or you can reach out to Mark as well at Insideworks. I just want to let you know that we do have a few more webinars coming soon. Next Tuesday, we have Donovan Lane and Jeff Pergolski from Innovia Consulting, and they're going to be presenting on improved cash flow by switching your annual enhancement to monthly. And next Wednesday, we have John Grant and Jenny Hollingsworth from Innovia Consulting, continuing their Business Central for Manufacturing 101 webinar series. And they're going to be presenting on planning worksheet tips, tricks, and best practices. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. And I just want to let you know that Innovia has a podcast going on, if you have not heard of it already. It's called the Innovia Conversation, and we just want to encourage you to listen to our selection that Steve Woltz and Jeff Pergolski have provided to us over the past year and a half. You can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection and subscribe so you'll be notified when those new episodes air. And Innovia Consulting is proud to be a platinum sponsor of Community Summit, which is coming up October 6th through the 9th in Nashville, Tennessee. Summit is the annual gathering for all Microsoft Dynamics Nav and Business Central users and supporters. And this event is a full event of great sessions to help develop leadership skills, improve NAV and BC skills, and learn how to get more from the investment our companies have made in the tool we use to run our businesses every day. So check out our conference page, and that's innovia.com/conferences for more details and to save on your summit registration. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Mark, for presenting, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar.